Hey guys, welcome back to Ace Recaps. Today I'm going to be explaining a 2010 Hindi action drama film titled Kites. The movie starts off as an injured Jay falls off a train while it's being unloaded. He is then treated, and it looks like he's got a bullet wound on his back. While the man removes the bullet, Jay has flashbacks of his lover and he passes out. A few days after he recovers, he leaves the farm and thanks the owners. They wish him the best of luck in finding the love of his life. He is then seen walking through the desert tired as hell. The scene cuts to 3 months earlier to the city of Las Vegas. Jay is a fun-loving guy and a conman. He teaches salsa to women on a daily basis, and often plays at the casino trying his luck at becoming a millionaire. He's tried his hand at various different jobs as a stuntman, popcorn seller, and even got married to multiple women to help them get their green card at a cost. Gina, who's head over heels in love with Jay, is seen stalking him. She even steals his room key and sneaks in. But Jay freaks out and throws her out of the house. He then feels bad and follows her to apologize and tells her that he's not in love with her. An upset Gina is then seen getting into a limousine. Looking at this, Jay is stunned. He starts stalking her, and figures out that she's the daughter of the owner of one of the biggest casinos in Vegas, Bob Grover. He then asks her if she'll join him in the dance competition next week. They are both then seen practicing and having fun together. Jay was sure that he's about to hit the jackpot. A dance scene then commences. Both of them are seen dancing together, showing off their crazy moves. Bob Grover also watches them from the audience and congratulates them after their performance. He even invites Jay to a party at their beach house the coming weekend. A few days later, Jay and Gina are seen arriving in a fancy Rolls-Royce. He enters their home and is astonished at the wealth of the family. Gina was head over heels for him and he was just pretending to be in love with her for her money. While freediving from their boat, he comes across a beautiful woman. He then sees her again back at the mansion. She is Gina's brother, Tony's fiancée, and introduces herself as Natasha. Jay is smitten. That night while they're having dinner, it's revealed that Jay and Natasha are actually married. The next day at the engagement party, Jay and Natasha totally seem to be into each other. He then explains how he met her. She was looking to get a green card and he married her for it. But out of all the girls he married, she's the only one that affected him. After the payment was done, he even helped her out in the rain by giving her his jacket. He watches her get engaged and smiles. The two couples even spend an evening on the boat together and Jay and Natasha share a moment together. He is even seen fantasizing about her. That night, Jay watches as Tony and Natasha have an intense fight. So he goes to cheer her up. They have a cute moment together. Tony then calls her back into the room and she hesitantly goes. It looks like she doesn't want to marry him, but is forced to. We are then taken to the present where we watch an exhausted Jay has now reached a train station. He has a flashback, and goes looking through the mud and finds a phone. He takes the phone to a bank and asks the teller to charge it. And while going to drink some water, he passes out. We are then taken back to the past where we watch a well-dressed Jay and Tony get out of a limousine and go meet Bob. Bob has blood on his hands, as he's been torturing two people for cheating in the casino. Tony shoots one of them and then forces Jay to kill the other. Jay seems hesitant, but needing the respect of the family, he takes the gun and warns the other person to go and tell the world what happens if they cheat. Bob and Tony seem impressed. Bob then explains to Jay how all the police, governors and senators are in his pocket. He then gives Jay his own gun and a key to his new car and welcomes him to the family. Bob questions him if he really loves Gina and Jay replies of course, but for the first time in his life, he seems frightened for lying. He looks at his brand new Bentley and loves the car. But wonders if he's doing the right thing as Natasha getting married the next day upsets him. That night while the family is having dinner, Jay sends a message to Natasha telling her that they need to finalize their divorce before she gets married. So she lies to her fiancé and they both go out. They are then seen having a bottle of champagne by a beautiful fountain. She confesses to Jay that she's only with Tony for his money. They then pretend to sign a fake piece of paper to finalize their divorce and tell each other that they wish they could be married for real. They are then seen cruising through the roads of Vegas drinking and having fun together. They even get wet in the rain and dance together. They then share a romantic kiss, and just as they are about to make sweet love, she stops herself thinking about her family stuck in poverty. A wasted Tony then shows up at her house, doubting and questioning her as to where she's been all night. Jay hides behind the door watching the drama. Tony pours champagne on her and starts beating her. Jay, not being able to watch this, interferes by pointing a gun at Tony's face. Tony pushes away the gun and shoots Jay but misses. Natasha hits Tony on the head with a bottle of champagne and they both escape from there. The next morning, the cops are called and the Bentley is tracked. A car chase begins and Tony goes after them. Luckily, the Bentley is found abandoned as they traded their expensive watches and bracelets for a truck. They are then seen enjoying their drive together through the back-end roads of the country. Just then the cops track them down. An epic chase begins and Jay manages to crash a few cop cars. They try their best to catch up to him, but Jay goes off-roading and spots hot air balloons. He instructs Natasha to get on one of them, so she jumps. Jay then turns the car around and grabs onto the hot air balloon and escapes the grasp of the police. The police start firing on them, but just then their truck crashes and it causes a cloud of smoke, making the cops lose sight of them. They are then seen jumping off the hot air balloon into a river. They both then end up in the jungle and Natasha is seen regretting her decisions to follow Jay. They have a fight and we see the stunning bodies of both Natasha and Jay. They argue for a bit but then make up. Meanwhile, we watch as the police tell Tony that Jay and Natasha are husband and wife. This enrages Tony and he's seen telling his dad that he wants to see them both killed. Jay and Natasha then go to the bank to withdraw some money from her account. But as they do so, the bank teller gets informed that they are wanted by the police. Jay and Natasha then pull out their guns and take someone hostage and Natasha demands for $1 million. Jay gets mad at her and tells her to take only what belongs to her, so they take their $200 and bolt. Outside they stop a van and get into it. They escape from there and they are both seen arguing about the recent incident. Natasha tells him that the punishment for $200 and $1 million is the same, so what's the point? Jay is left dumbstruck. That night they both end up at a motel for the night. Natasha looks stunning after her shower and Jay tries to get into her pants but gets rejected. The next morning she tells him about her poor family in Mexico and the reason she was with Tony was to help them out, and they both confess their love for each other. Just then the police enter the room and arrest the both of them. As they exit the motel, the locals demand the police for the money stolen by the couple. They then get duped by Jay and they all get into a shootout. Jay and Natasha manage to steal the keys and escape through the window. They uncuff themselves and get on a bike. Another police chase begins and they try to escape through the highway. But unfortunately the police shoot the bike and it stops working. So they jump onto a moving truck and abandon the bike. Just then Natasha gets shot in the arm but Jay manages to hold onto her. On the truck, Jay drops the cars onto the police cars, destroying all of them. He then gets in the last car and drives off the truck and finally escapes the police. That night Jay is seen stitching up Natasha's gunshot wound. She then tells Jay not to worry and falls asleep on his lap in the wilderness. The next day, Jay calls up his friend, Robin, and instructs him to take Natasha away from him as he plans to surrender himself because he can't stand watching Natasha get hurt. "Please don't fall in love, guys, it just ain't worth it, geez." Natasha then heads off with Robin. And Jay breaks down crying. Some moments later, Natasha comes running back and slaps Jay for letting her go. She yells at him for abandoning her and they both break down crying and fall into each other's arms. The next day Tony gets a picture of the couple and a call. On the call is Robin, who offers him the location of the couple for $2 million. Tony takes the money and rushes to the location. He is then instructed to head to the parking lot of a mall. He is suddenly attacked by Jay and Robin. They steal the money and Jay warns Tony to leave them alone from now on. He apologizes for what he did to his family and then wraps tape over his mouth. The two of them are then seen getting into the car with Natasha and celebrating with the money. They drive for a few hundred miles together, happy that they've finally escaped. They get into the trunk of a car and finally escape into Mexico on a truck with Robin as the driver. They go to the outskirts of Mexico and make a deal to have their new passports ready in a week so they can finally get out of the country. Jay and Natasha visit her family in a fancy limo and she's finally reunited with them after so long. They have dinner together and share a few laughs. Natasha even buys her old family home so they can live debt-free. They finally make love together in their new house. The next day, they both get married and celebrate together. Back at home, the hot new married couple are seen sharing a romantic moment together. Just then they are interrupted by Robin. He is surprised to see that they got married and celebrates. Suddenly we hear gunshots and Robin falls to the ground. Tony has tracked them down and is now after them. Jay takes cover and drags Robin in. On his last breath, Robin hands over their new passports. Jay and Natasha escape from the back of the house and just as they get into their truck, Jay covers Natasha and gets shot in the back. She pulls him into the truck and drives away but they are still followed by Tony. Natasha is seen crying and begging Jay to stay awake, while Jay struggles for his life. She manages to escape Tony by ramming into their car and crashing them. Natasha then drags Jay and loads him onto a train. She says her goodbye and gets back into the truck and escapes so Tony won't be able to kill Jay. We are then taken back to the present where Jay wakes up and checks his phone. Just then Tony arrives with his gang members as the bank teller called him by looking up a number from his wallet. They look around for him, but Jay escapes by climbing onto the roof and jumping onto a moving train. He then reaches Las Vegas and stands in front of the casino. He visits a friend and collects an assault rifle from him hoping to save Natasha's life. He then calls up one of Tony's men and asks him for the location of Natasha. They then decide to meet later that night. As they meet, he realizes that this was a trap. Tony approaches him with all his men. Jay begs Tony to tell him where Natasha is but Tony just ends up beating him up in the rain. As Tony pulls out a gun to shoot Jay, he is suddenly run over by one of his own men. Jay gets into the car and they escape from there. The car then crashes and the driver tells Jay about the location of Natasha and he passes away as he was shot by Tony. As Jay is approached by Tony and his men, Jay takes out his assault rifle and ends up killing everyone including the mob boss. He beats up Tony and finally ends his life. A depressed Jay is seen getting into a car and driving off. He gets to a cliff and breaks down crying. It is then shown that at that very spot, Natasha drove off the cliff to get away from Tony. Jay finally jumps off the cliff into the water to end his life. Just as he's about to die, he has one last vision of Natasha and their love story fades away. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like the video please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.